want to, before I introduce our speaker, give you guys a little background on the Entrepreneurship Speaker Series. The first time we taught this class was about 5 years ago, and the first time we taught it, there were 15 students enrolled, which you got to start somewhere, and that's where we started. We've got about 150 between both classes today, and that's a lot of growth, right? It took a minute for the class to really find its audience, but the class is, well, it's popular, right? And at some point, I realized that it would be really nice to have a sponsor for the speaker series. And I followed the advice of Willie Sutton. Does anyone know who Willie Sutton is? He is a bank robber. And someone asked him, why do you rob banks? And he answered, does anyone want to know? Does anyone guess? Because that's where the money is, right? It's a good one-liner. So when I first set out to find a sponsor for the speaker series, I went to a really big bank that had a lot of money, and we requested that they sponsor the speaker series, and they said they'd get back to us, and kind of month after month they didn't get back to us, and as they were thinking about our proposal, I was thinking about what it would be like to have a partner that was, banks have a lot of money but not a lot of personality generally, right? And didn't really feel like a great fit for the feel of this class. So like I said, as they were thinking about our proposal, I was thinking about a company that had a lot of style and personality and a sense of fun. And that company is Namify, and their signature product is Axomo. And so that brings me to our speaker today. Our speaker today is Chris Jensen. Chris is the CEO of Namify. And just to bring you up to speed a little bit, so we withdrew our application from the bank, and then we went to Axomo or Namify. Again, Namify is the company, and their signature product is Axomo, and hopefully we'll know a little bit more.
We'll talk about that today.
We'll get to know a little bit more about that today. So it gives me great pleasure for the first time to welcome you all to the Entrepreneurship Speaker Series sponsored by Axomo.
Thank you.
So a little bit on our speaker today. He is, as I said, CEO of Namify. Chris met the founder of Namify at a business pitch event where he did very well, and was later hired by the founder of Namify. He was hired at a rate of $6.50 an hour.
That's right.
And which was
again, more than minimum wage at the time, so that was cool.
So as I said, you got to start somewhere. So he was promoted, obviously, and was instrumental in making Namify one of the fastest growing companies in the country. So they tripled their year-over-year revenue, and they were, according to Inc. magazine, one of the fastest growing companies in the country 3 years in a row. In 2012, Chris became CEO of Namify and was honored by Utah Business Magazine as one of the top 40 business leaders under 40. Please welcome Chris Jensen.
Thank you. Well, thanks for letting me be a part of this. I'm excited to be here and share some of the things that I've learned over the last, 20 years of business with you. I was you at one point. I graduated from UVU and cabinet building of all things to graduate in. I don't build cabinets. I have a shop back at my place, but my wife always asks me to build things, and I usually tell her to go buy the things because the reality is we just don't have time to do those things. I got 4 kids. My oldest is 17, so he's probably not too far behind maybe some of you. He's a junior at Maple Mountain High School up in Mapleton, and I've got a 15-year-old, a 12, and a 10-year-old. So 2 boys and 2 girls, and they're a lot of work, but we love them a lot. They're fun to be around. So I'm a big family guy. I enjoy hanging out with my family. I enjoy a lot of those things. But work obviously takes a lot of what I do, or a lot of my time is put into the job that I have, which is being the CEO. So it was mentioned a little bit in the beginning. I'm going to just tweak that story just a little bit if that's okay. So it's like 98% correct. I believe that in life you get a lot of opportunities, but you never know which opportunities are going to be the ones that change your life forever, right? And so I'm a big fan of take all the opportunities you can. So I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I came back, and when I got back, I needed a job. I was going to UVU for cabinet building. I needed a job. I had a friend that worked at New Skin at the time and in the call center, and I knew they were making like $8 an hour, and I was super stoked. I'm like, I just need a job. Get me a job. And he said, I'm not going to get you a job. And I was like, but we're really good friends. Why would you do that to me? And he said, I'm going to introduce you to this guy. You should go work for him. And so I got introduced to my now partner at work 20 years ago. And I walked in for an interview on it was probably like July 7th, actually. I don't know why I remember the day, but I walked in, I interviewed with him, and he hired me. But I told him that I wasn't going to be able to start working until August 22nd of that year. And so he said, yeah, whatever, just come back. And being young and dumb, I guess, is the best way to put it, I never thought to follow up with him. I didn't think that, I should call him once a month or once every couple weeks and say, hey, I'm coming up, like, don't forget about me. So I showed up on August 22nd. I walked in the door and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he looked at me with a blank look in his face, like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Chris, like, I'm Jason's friend, you hired me. And he's like, oh yeah, why don't you come back and you start working on this. Guys, my life could have changed completely that day. If he would have just said, hey, guess what? Like, I don't need you anymore. Like, no big deal. You know what I would have done with that? Nothing. I'd have said, cool, makes sense. And I'd have probably just went and got a job somewhere else. And my life would have changed. It would have been different. So I learned some things early on in life. Luckily, he brought me back, and luckily I got hired. And to go with the business thing, so about the competition, so about, I don't know, maybe a month or 2 in, there were 3 of us working there. And Brian asked, he said, hey guys, pitch your business idea, best idea gets $500, on how we would grow. And I never got $500, just for the record. But I still am here and I still have a job. So I assumed that I won. And I make a little bit more than $6.50 an hour right now. So I think things are okay with that whole thing. So I've never asked him to give me that $500. But if you're listening, Brian, wouldn't hurt. But really, life's about chances, right? It's about opportunities. I almost missed out on a great opportunity because I didn't follow up and I didn't get back with somebody. And at the time, I didn't know to do that. And so I think, if there's throughout today, I hope you'll walk away with a few things in our time together. But one of those things is, it's great to follow up with people, whether it's a job interview that you've interviewed, whether it's a client that you're working with, no matter who it is that you're working with, whatever the thing is that you're working on, it's great to get back with people and to follow up with people. It's important. It could have changed my life. It could have been different. I'm grateful that I'm at where I'm at. I'm grateful that I'm doing what I'm doing. So let me tell you a little bit about Namify and what we do, and then I'm going to kind of bring in the Axomo piece so you understand kind of what that is. So Namify, we do promotional products. We've been doing that for 20 plus years, engraving, screen printing, embroidery. So anything that you guys see that you're wearing that's branded, chances are maybe we could have made it. If we didn't make it, that's what we do. And so we kind of grew up as a company selling as much as possible, right? That makes sense. If you're in a company, you want to sell the most things possible, right? And so that was always our goal. We didn't really care about what people got. We didn't care about how it got used. We didn't care that it got used. We just cared that we could sell it. And so somebody called us up and said like, hey, I need 10,000 stress balls, you know, the little squeezy balls, which I don't like at all. We would sell them. That's what we would do because that's what the client wanted. And we thought that that was what was important, was to give the client what they wanted. Now that is a true reality in business, but we weren't really getting a lot of joy out of it. I wasn't excited about it. Again, I came from cabinet building. So for me, how many of you have like built something out of wood or created something? How does it feel when you get done with that thing? How does it feel? It's awesome, right? Like you look at that and you're like, I just took these raw pieces of wood and I glued them together and I planed them and I routed them and I stained them and lacquered them or whatever. And you end up with this cool product when you were done. That was the avenue that I was going down. That's what I wanted to do, right? So here I am, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years into this career, creating stress balls that I don't like, that I don't want to use, right? Printing hundreds of thousands of t-shirts that are what I would call a one-size-fits-all, right? You've all seen it. You've probably got it. If you've ever gone to a playoff game at the Jazz or wherever it is, like everybody gets the same extra large yellow t-shirt, which, you know, it's cool, right? It's memorable, but probably doesn't fit 50% of you in here, if not more, right? So you wear it that day, but never again. And we started to realize about 15 years in, guys, 15 years in, a company that was successful, a company that we had been in the Inc. 5000 and we'd grown these things like was mentioned. I'd been part of this 40 under 40. I'm over 40 now, so it's a good thing I did it then. But we'd done all these amazing things, but at the end of the day, I wasn't building cabinets. I wasn't proud of the things, if you will, that we were putting out there. I was making money. I have a great family. I had a fast car. That's a story for another day, if we have another day. I had a fast car. I had all these great things, but I wasn't getting any satisfaction out of it, oddly enough. So we kind of took the promotional industry and flipped it on its head. We decided that it was time to stop selling hundreds of thousands of things that we didn't care about as much as probably we should have. We decided that there was more to business than just making a lot of money. And guess what? When we forgot about that part of it, we've seen more success than we ever saw when we sold hundreds of thousands of things. I asked a few of you beforehand if you would come up. Do you mind coming up here just for a minute? I won't take too much of your time, but these are some of your brave classmates volunteering for something that they don't even know they were voluntold. They were asked, I guess. Sam?
Yep.
Sam's from Manti, Utah. Actually, Ephraim. I'm from a little place called Gunnison. So we were rivals. I mean, we weren't rivals, but do you have older brothers?
I'm the oldest.
Oh, some of your family, we were rivals, right? So I grew up in central Utah. Your name?
Abby.
Abby, where are you from, Abby?
Payson, Utah.
Payson? I live in Mapleton. So just kind of up the road, right? Payson's a good place, right?
Sure.
Sure. I wasn't very confident. What's your name?
Steven.
Steven, where are you from?
San Diego.
San Diego. What the heck brought you to SUU?
School and football.
Football? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Kind of look like a football player.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Your name?
Travis.
Travis. Where are you from?
From Ogden.
Ogden?
Utah.
Okay,
Yeah.
come down the I-15 corridor.
Yeah.
And your name is hard for me to pronounce.
Famke.
Famke
Yep.
is your name. And where are you from?
The Netherlands.
Netherlands?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You're like, anybody further than the Netherlands away? I think that's a word in itself. Come clear from the Netherlands. Congratulations. That's awesome. All right. So here's why I bring these guys up here, right? Everybody has, just stay there if you will, we all have different tastes, right? We all look different. We all have our own personalities. We all have our own. Hey, can you actually come up here? I like your style. Come on up. What's your name?
Jaden.
Jaden? Where are you from?
St. George.
St. George. Cool. Jaden, come on over here if you don't mind. It just works out, right? So everybody's got their look, right? You like to golf, I guess, right? Golf's your thing. You enjoy it. What do you like to do?
I like to run.
You like to run? I hate running, but that's cool. Makes sense. We're competitors.
Part of why
So
I was a cross-country runner.
cross country, that makes sense. What do you like? What do you like to do?
Dance and softball.
Dance and softball. I like to play slow pitch. You like playing football for sure. Are you going to go with that?
I'm a runner as well.
Yeah, it's cross-country championship. How'd I get 2 runners? That's crazy.
I'm a dancer.
Dancer?
Yeah.
We got 2 dancers, we got a couple runners, and a golfer and a football player. Every one of them are different, right? They all have a different personality. They all have different looks. They all have different styles, right? We have people that are still repping their brand because they can't get out of Manti. Should get out of Manti. Do you listen to the Rolling Stones? What? That's like a thing for me, right? That's a thing right now. My daughter has a Pink Floyd. Anybody listen to Pink Floyd? There's a few of you that I love right now, all right? So that's a thing right now. Everybody wears shirts for bands. They've never heard of them. That's okay. I like the shirt.
I just don't listen to them.
That's okay. That's okay. My daughter, when I told her about Pink Floyd, I said, do you know who they are? And she said, no. And I said, dude, you've listened to them your whole life. You didn't know it. But she likes Pink Floyd now that she knows. So you got your style, right? Wearing some Hurley. You've got, did you run in the NCAA cross championships?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you ever listened to MTV?
I have.
Yes. Nice. But you have your own style. So if I was to come here and give you guys a one-size-fits-all t-shirt, would you ever use it? You probably wouldn't. You'd wear it once, maybe twice, maybe if you were like mowing the lawn or painting something, but you wouldn't use it, right? You have your own style, and I think that's awesome. Thank you. That was it. I told you I wouldn't mess with you too much except for the Manti guy, Sam.
There's a reason why we say MHS forever.
All right. So I'm gonna tell you a little story. So these shoes are not the shoes from the story. I couldn't find them. And the reality was I gave them away because, well, I didn't like them. But I had a real good friend of mine that gave me a pair of Nike shoes, okay? He was excited about these Nike shoes. He thought they were awesome. Not these again, right? But these were like a ridiculous shoe that I thought would work for the presentations that I do. So he gave me this pair of shoes, mails them to me, gets them. He's like, get the shoes, I got them. Some of his favorite colors are kind of brown and green. My favorite colors are not brown and green necessarily, but the shoes were brown and green. And they were like a 3/4 top, like hiker type shoe. He's a big hiker. I do enjoy hiking, so that did hit home. But at the end of the day, I wore the shoes one time. These were a $200 pair of Nike shoes, right? I wore them one time. And it was interesting because I lived up in Provo at the time, right underneath the Y, and I decided to wear them hiking the Y. They were awful. They did not fit my feet. I don't know, how many, do you have to try on shoes to like shoes? I do. I'm not the guy that can order shoes online. I got to try on 10 pair to find one that I like. So that didn't work for me, but he was excited. So I wore them once, I put them in the closet, and I didn't know what to do with them. And my wife, every once in a while, was like, hey, Chris, why do you still have those shoes here? You got to get rid of those shoes, like you're taking up room in the closet. And I'm like, I don't know, I can't get rid of them. And she's like, why? I'm like, what if my friend asks me what I did with those shoes? And she's like, does it matter? I'm like, yeah, I'd feel embarrassed if I told them that I just donate them or I didn't like them. And so they stayed there. So fast forward a couple years, finally I get the gall or whatever to just donate them to DI, and I get rid of the shoes, okay? I'm in a meeting with this friend a couple years after that, and I'm in the middle of kind of spinning up Axomo and talking about choice, and he's a part of this meeting. And I said to him, he said, hey, listen, one of the weirdest things that happen is sometimes friends give friends weird gifts. And Axomo is going to help overcome that friends give friends weird gift stuff. And I'm like, oh man, if ever there was a time to tell my friend that those shoes were terrible, it's today. And so I tell my friend, I said, hey, you remember those shoes you got me? He said, yeah, I do remember those shoes. Weren't they awesome? And I said, those shoes sucked. They were the worst shoes I ever had. And he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, why did you never tell me that? And I just told him, I said, man, it was awkward. You gave me a cool gift, or you thought you gave me a cool gift, but it wasn't a cool gift. It didn't work for me. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is part of the reason that we built Axomo. I've been in the swag world for 15 years, now 20. 15, I didn't love it. I did it, I got a paycheck, it was awesome. The last 5 have been amazing. I love it. Every day I get to go to work and I get to do something that I love. I know the products and the things we do make a difference in people's lives, and that's fun. That's exciting to me. I brought a couple other things to show you because I think they're unique. Some of them you may never have done. Tyler, you wore Jankos, didn't you? Didn't you wear Janko jeans? I don't know if you did or not. I wore Janko jeans. How many of you know what Janko jeans are? No? Yeah, so it kind of shows my age. I am over 40. So these were the jeans, man. When I was a junior, maybe a sophomore, junior, senior in high school, like everybody that was cool had Janko jeans. You bought them at JCPenney up at the mall, right? They were cool. And the coolest thing about Janko jeans for me was they actually fit your waist, but it looked like you were low riding. So it kind of looked like you were this like super cool guy that was wearing something cool. The back pockets, you could fit a VHS and a 2-liter bottle of, I kid you not, you could fit a VHS and a 2-liter bottle of soda in the back pocket. And so, you know, on a Saturday afternoon when I was done farming or doing whatever I was doing on the farm, I walked down to the video store, which doesn't exist really anymore either, and I'd get a VHS and a 2-liter bottle of soda, and I'd go back, and that's how I'd spend my afternoon. So again, I won't wear those now. I've worn them a couple times around the office just to show people how ridiculous I used to look, but I don't now. The other thing that I think, you know, kind of just a couple little things to show props. This is the biggest shirt that you can get in a Port Authority. It's a 10XL. It's a big shirt, and I know this is, the phrase on there is kind of funny, I guess, but my boss chose this shirt. That's a reality. It happens too often, right? So that just kind of goes back to that piece of too often we give things that just don't hit the mark, and they just don't work. And we're big fans of blowing that thing up. In fact, it's getting kind of crazy because a lot of our competitors are trying to figure out why we wouldn't sell 100,000 things to somebody. Why do we just sell one? Well, it's just for that reason. We're all unique, we're all different, and it's important to us as a company to make sure that we provide a product that is meaningful and that does something for people. So that's Axomo, right? So Namify, we produced hundreds of thousands of things. It was okay, it was fun. Axomo, which is our online platform, we allow companies to put a credit in for their employees, and the employees go in and they pick whatever they want. The cool thing is, we've kind of, like I keep telling you, we've flipped the industry on its head. Prior to that, we surveyed that we know this stuff. So prior to that, 40% of all the swag, 60% of all the swag that is given out is thrown away or regifted in 30 days. So if there's something that I can tell you, I don't know what you all are planning on doing in your life, but don't do something that's meaningless after 30 days, okay? It's not fun. It's not cool. But that's what happens with swag. When people don't pick it and when they don't have choice in it, you've all been there, right? You've all got something that you've probably thrown away in 30 days because it wasn't meaningful to you. The awesome thing is when people get to pick their own stuff, when they get to have choice in what they do, we're between 90 and 95% right now of usage on the products that we sell. So we've taken an industry with 60% waste and we've cut that back down to anywhere between 5 to 7.5 roughly percent waste, which is pretty awesome. From a sustainability standpoint, that's one of our big pieces of our company. That's one of the things that we're striving for, is to be a sustainable company. That's completely changed how that works. We don't send out hundreds of thousands of things now. We send out significantly less because we're giving people what they want. The other thing that people may not realize, I'll just ask you, how many of you in here, and some of you may feel this way, how many of you in here don't even want branded swag? Right? That's not true. You're wearing a Templars thing and a jazz hat. That's branded swag. I'll stop. I'll stop, Sam. Some of you don't even want it. Guess what? Companies didn't realize that. Companies thought that they were doing a great thing by giving everybody something, right? That's everybody wants something. But the reality was, that from what we've surveyed, about 18% of employees don't want anything. And we know that because companies will give them a credit to buy something, give them a $100 credit. 18% of the employees never use it. They don't want it. And so right off the bat, we were able to save 18% of swag from getting regifted or donated or thrown away in 30 days, which we felt like was a real cool thing. So now going back to my cabinet building years, right? Now I'm taking a product, taking that wood, I'm sanding it, I'm planing it, I'm gluing it together, and I'm building a cabinet, and I'm excited about it. That's what we do at Axomo and at Namify, which is pretty fun. So a couple of thoughts I wanted to go through that are kind of a part of that. You guys are at a point in your life right now where I told you, so I started, I didn't tell you, I started working part-time. So when I started at Namify back in the day, it was actually called Florida Keys, and then the name tag source, then Namifiers and Namify. You don't need to remember all that, I don't think, unless there's a quiz at the end. But I started working part-time. I worked 2 hours a day. And some people would think that 2 hours a day is like worthless, right? I worked 20 hours a pay period. Every 2 weeks, I worked 20 hours. I started at 3, we closed at 5. And so I worked 2 hours a day. I'm convinced that this may sound kind of crazy. I don't know that I was that much greater than everybody else that was there. But what I can tell you is I worked from 3 to 5. And by the time I got there at 3, everybody else was kind of tired for the day. And I showed up like fresh and ready to go. And I outworked everybody. And I think it might have been because I was fresh and ready to go and people were tired. But I outworked everybody. And I guess what I wanted to tell you, one of the things I was thinking about this morning that I wanted you to walk away with today as well, is it doesn't matter if you work an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day, give it your all. You never know what that's going to turn into. Even when I started working for Namify 20 years ago, I didn't plan on being there forever. Again, I was going to school to build cabinets, right? But I gave it my all. I gave it everything I had, and I ended up staying. And I ended up promoting, and I ended up being a CEO, which has been super awesome. Did you have a question? Oh, itch in your hair? Cool. Questions aren't till the end, so just making sure. But give it your all. Whether you work an hour a day, 2 hours, 3 hours, it doesn't matter. You never know what difference that you'll make. I was actually in a meeting just this last week with one of the top recruiters in the state of Utah. His name's Reed Laws. He's awesome. And one of the things that he said right now that companies are looking for, and we're one of them more than anything, oddly enough, not full-time people that can work 8 hours a day. We're looking for those too. But I think a lot of people are really worried that like, oh, I only can work a couple hours and I can only work 2 hours on Wednesday in the morning and 2 hours on Thursday in the afternoon and 2 hours on Friday, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's awesome. In fact, he said companies are looking for that flexibility right now. You know why? For the same thing I just said, you're fresh. You come in, you put your heart and soul into the 2 hours that you're there, and sometimes you outperform somebody that's there for 4 hours or 5 hours. And let me tell you what, that's a resume builder. That's the type of thing that if you want a referral from an employer, you're going to get one if you come in and you do that. So again, that just rings true to me. I was a benefactor of that. I worked my butt off for 2 hours a day, and I ended up being here, which has been super awesome. So don't discount the fact that somebody's there 8 hours a day. Don't discount the fact that you can't be there all day. Don't discount the fact that you don't know everything about everything in a company. You know what I did when I first started? You ever seen those little license plate, little key tags in gas stations that have your name on them, like Bob and Chris and Joe? I cut those. That's all I did for 2 hours a day. We had a screen printer that would print them. I would do what we called stripping them, where we would print 4 rows, and I would cut the 4 rows, and then I would turn it, and I would cut 10 pieces, and I would router the ends, and I would drill a hole in it. That's what I did for 2 hours a day for a year. But I did it faster and better than everybody else. That was it. It wasn't glorious. That's the other thing. Work's not always glorious. I haven't been where I'm at my entire career. Guess what, as a CEO right now? work's not always glorious. I have days where I go to work, like everybody's like, oh, you probably love your job. I absolutely love my job 97% of the time, right? There's still days where it's challenging, and I don't even hate those days. They're great days because you learn something, but there's still days that are challenging. I still have challenges with employees. We have 180 employees that we work with every day. Trust me, there's 180 different personalities. You hear people talk about you can't please everybody. I'll testify to that all day long. Everybody's got a different want, everybody's got a different desire. So that's kind of challenging. But again, no matter what the job is you do, remember, I cut key tags. I made little state plates. That's all I did, 2 hours a day. But I tell you what, I was better than anybody else that did it at that time. And I think that made all the difference. I think a couple other things to think about, being dependable. I know that sounds so obvious, and you're all like, well, yeah, we're going to be dependable. I want you to walk away from this today knowing too, that means everything to an employer, being dependable. Being where you said you're going to be, when you said you're going to be there, is crucial. As an employer, we make plans, right? And you're a part of those plans. You help us make those plans. And when somebody doesn't show up, it just throws a wrench in plans, right? Being dependable, crazy enough, is a huge part of it. I remember one time when I wasn't dependable in the very beginning. And I hadn't even thought about talking about this, but it's coming to mind. I had a bunch of friends that were going snowboarding at Sundance, and it had just snowed. And I remember coming back the next day. I called my boss and I said, hey, I can't come into work today. I'm going to go snowboarding. I thought nothing of it. I thought it was like totally cool. Again, I was pretty fresh at work. And so I thought it was totally fine. And he said yes. And so I was like, okay, cool. Boss said yes, I'm going to go do it. When I got back the next day, he sat me down and he taught me about dependability. And I remember sitting there thinking like, but you said yes, you said I could go. And he said, yeah, I said you could go, but you should have never asked me in the first place. Like, you didn't plan ahead. You just kind of at a whim decided to do something. And that's just not the way that it works in the business world. Like, if you want to grow and you want to get ahead, you got to plan ahead. You can't just say, I'm out. You got to be there when you say you're going to be there. And so I think that's one of the things that, again, as you walk away, being dependable makes a big difference. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there, right? Plan ahead if you're not going to be there. As a CEO, guess what? I still plan my days off in advance. I don't just not show up to work someday. Like, I work. That's what I do. That's my job. If I'm going to take a vacation, I plan my vacation out a month in advance or 2 months in advance or whatever it might be, because that's what I expect my team to do. It's really no different for anybody in the crew. So anyway, be dependable. I think that makes a big difference. One of the other couple other things that I wanted to cover too, and I'm going to go back to I told you about the fast car, right? So I'm going to go back to that. When I was about, I'd have been 31. I was 31. 30. I was 30. And I'd achieved everything in life. My goals were pretty shallow, okay? My goals in life were, I wanted a fast car. I wanted a hot wife. Got one of those. I wish she was here. She couldn't come today. You'd be like, yep, she's hot. Nicole, if you watch this, you know what I'm talking about. I had a fast car, I had a beautiful wife. I had snowmobiles and four-wheelers and a big truck, and I had all the things. I grew up on a farm in central Utah, by the way. Grew up farming. So those were the things that you wanted. Those were all the cool things, and I got them by the time I was 30. And I wasn't happy, believe it or not. I had all the cool stuff. I could go snowmobiling, I could go didn't have a side-by-side at the time, they weren't really a thing, but I could just go ride and do whatever I wanted. I had a fast car, did 170 miles an hour. I know that because I did that a couple of times, and let me tell you, 170 is really fast. You shouldn't do it. But that was cool. And sometime around age 30, I realized that I wasn't happy. Can you imagine that? all the cool stuff in the world, I wasn't happy. So I was kind of having some personal time, some personal contemplation, and I just decided to sell it all. As a 30-year-old, I sold it all. I sold my cool trailer, I sold my fast car, I sold my snowmobiles. All my friends in Gunnison were like, holy crap, did he just lose his job? Like, these are, because they knew me well enough that they knew that was my goals. I realized my goals were shallow. My goals weren't about growing. My goals weren't about improving other people. And that's the next step that I want to get into as we're talking is, one of the things as a CEO, you get the opportunity, or as an entrepreneur, if you don't have the goal to improve other people, I'm going to tell you right now, change your ways. Your goal has to be, or a goal, or one of your goals needs to be, help other people improve. I'm not getting paid to be down here. I'm down here because I want to share my story with you. I want you to walk away with some things that I learned, right? Like, this is my hope that you can do that. And one of my goals as a CEO, I got a few, but one of them is, and I hope if you ask my team this, they would be able to answer, some of them hopefully would be able to answer this, but one of my goals is I want people to get better at something while they work for me, right? And if they end up staying at Namify forever, awesome. If they end up learning a skill set and that advances them to get to a new career somewhere else, I applaud that. That's amazing. That means we succeeded as a company because we helped somebody get better and we helped somebody improve. And that, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, what I'll tell you is you have to have amazing people around you. And you will only have amazing people around you if you treat them that way and as you help them get better. My partner, he did that for me, right? 20 years, there's hardly a day that goes by that he doesn't teach me something and he doesn't help me get better. And I'm grateful for that. It's helped me be who I am. And so I hope that you'll take that same opportunity as an entrepreneur or as a CEO or whatever you end up stepping into to remember that you have that responsibility. And I call it that. It's a responsibility to teach people and to help people be better at what they do. And if you'll do that, I promise you, you will find joy and you'll find success. You can't succeed by yourself. I don't believe that. Let me rephrase. Maybe you can succeed by yourself. You won't have happiness. That I do believe. Maybe you'll find personal success, but personal success by yourself is lonely. You don't want to be that. Build a team, build people around you. I promise you, as you'll do that, you'll be able to grow and have a lot of fun. Listen, I think we're at 40 minutes. Do I do Q&A now? Does that sound right? Before I do that, listen, thank you for being here today. What a great opportunity for me to be able to spend some time with all of you. I'm excited for you and for what you have in your future. Business is fun. Business is super freaking hard. I've cried, I've sweat, and straight up I bled. I shoved a screwdriver right through my finger, and I'll tell you what, screwdrivers through your finger are not cool. I don't recommend it. But I've done all those things, and I'd like to tell you it only happened once. The screwdriver only happened once. The other things have happened many times. In 20 years, tears have come to my eyes a lot of times, and they've been tears of joy when I've seen people succeed immensely. They've been tears of, holy crap, I'm scared out of my mind because what are we stepping into, right? And they've just been tears because what else do you do sometimes, you know? But the reality is I've enjoyed every minute of it, and grateful to be here with you all today. So, thank you. Yes.
So, it's a pretty big decision going from like making lots of products that were the same to more customizable ones, you know? So what did that decision process look like? And is it the same as like other big decisions that you make? Like, do you guys do like the same thing, or I don't know?
Yeah, so we had a unique, that transition was, I shouldn't say it was super easy, but it was kind of easy because we use the same equipment to do either one, right? So if we're printing 100,000 of something or we're printing one, we can use similar equipment. So the nice thing is we didn't have to like completely retool to do it. And let me be clear. I still, because if you show up and if you ever show up at my place, and you all are welcome whenever you want, and you're like, wait a minute, you're printing 25,000 t-shirts. You said you only do one. We still do that. And we do that for some things. So we have a big grocery store chain in the Northwest, and that's how they market. So from a marketing standpoint, we still do some of those things. But it was a big decision for us because we did have to do a little bit retooling. What I can tell you in the promotional world, in screen printing, if you've been in that type of thing, in the time it takes me to make one, I could make 12. And so it's definitely a little bit different process. So it was kind of a big decision. So our employee count, we're about 30% more heavy employee base than we would be if we were actually doing big bulk stuff, because the ones take a lot more time. So it was actually a pretty big financial decision for us to make that change. Yes?
What's the story behind the names of Exomo and Namify?
Oh, good question. So Namify, so we put names on things. So Namify, so we nameify things. That's kind of where we got with there. Exomo is a mix of a few things. One, when we were kind of building the whole thing back quite a few years ago, everybody had X's in their name, it seemed like. So we're like, well, you got to have an X. That's part of it. But we looked at it like this. The world spins on an axis. We wanted to be a global company. And so AX was axis, essentially. And then we did promotional products, which was OMO, so promo OMO. So we came up with Axomo and put those together. So, yes?
I have a question like this. You guys did that switch and kind of went, how did you market that to different businesses and things, and what was their initial reaction to it?
It's a good question. The person that I had, the people I had the hardest time convincing that this was a good idea was my sales team, right? Why? Because my sales team made all their money by selling 100,000 things all day long, right? And so when I started pitching the idea, or we started pitching the idea like, no, you're gonna sell one. And they're like, no way, we're not selling one. So here's the other thing with Axomo. It's a platform we've built. We developed it in-house. We've spent quite a few years developing it, so I've got a dev team too. We charge for that platform. So to use it, we charge people to use it, right? And then we also make the product that goes out on it. But we charge for it to get used because I've spent millions of dollars developing it. And so when I started talking to my sales team about charging our clients to use a website that we were going to help them use for them to do it, they told me never in a million years would it work, right? They were my biggest naysayers. But now they're the biggest benefactors from it. In fact, they do significantly better now than they ever did before. And now because we have a platform, a lot of that stuff's automated. So when somebody orders something, the way we've built it, I'm a big fan of systems, probably comes from cabinet building, but the way we built it, when they order it, goes right to our machine. So my sales team will show up in the morning and they've already got 49 orders in the system that they didn't even do anything with. And so it's kind of a fun system. We changed the way, kind of to the client standpoint, we changed the way that we marketed that. We started attending a lot of different trade shows. The trade shows we started attended were more HR focused, employee retention focused, because we kind of stepped into a different field, if you will. So rather than the marketing, get everything to everybody, it was more focused on the employee's individual needs and whatnot. So, yes. Good question. So we still do a little bit of both. And so we've probably got about 25% of our clients that have jumped over to the Axomo platform because they do like the simplicity of it. One of the other things it does is it gets, if you've ever, maybe you have or haven't, but a lot of times when somebody takes a shirt order for a company, you end up with one person with a Google spreadsheet or an Excel sheet that has to get to everybody's size and everybody's whatever. They print it. They deliver to that individual then has to try and get that to everybody. We handle that for them. So now the employees can go right onto the store, order what they want. We'll actually ship it directly to their house so that they don't have to go back to some person for distribution. So a lot of our clients love that aspect of it. Some of them we're still working on. We got another 75% to go, but it's working pretty well. Yes?
Their feedback or just landing that client gave you
Yeah, we had, so I told you my sales team was the biggest, like they were the biggest people I had to convert to this. We started selling actually really quickly to clients direct. And so some of the first clients we've got, I don't name them on camera necessarily, but I would off. But we've got some really big Fortune 500 companies that have come to us and they're excited about the fact of the things I just said. Now they don't have to, they don't have to have somebody that does all the work of all trying to decide what to get, what to buy. That's stressful. I don't know if you've ever done it, but that's stressful to try and figure what everybody wants to wear. It's actually an impossibility. And so once companies started seeing that employees could have that option or that ability, they were super excited about it. And in fact, it took probably 25 or 30 accounts that we would close as house accounts before the rest of the companies started to realize, like, holy crap, like this is actually something. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, here and then here. Yeah.
It sounded like work ethic was kind of like the first thing that got you noticed. Then did like your employer at the time, like partner, take you like under his wing, or did you just like kind of progress through the company promotion at the time?
Yeah, so probably, I'm not going to be great on the timeline, but sometime in this first 6 months, he went to Florida for a couple weeks. That's where his family was from. And he asked me, he said, hey, I need you to like handle this part. And it was making name tags. So we had a little name tag printer. And he said, I need you to print these name tags and do the proofs and send them to the clients. And he showed me how to do it. I was like, cool, I'll do it. And then I just figured when he came home, he would do it again. And he never did it again. He had me do it. And then every time he left, he taught me something else. So when I talked about that mentoring piece and teaching people, even to today, I will probably talk to him on the way home. He will teach me something. And so, yeah, right from the get-go, maybe after the first 4 or 5 or 6 months after I'd worked faster, because I only worked 2 hours a day and I was fresher than everybody. So.
Yeah, and then I was wondering, kind of piggybacking off of that, what was your path from starting part-time to kind of becoming the CEO of the company?
So I was like every other, and some of you may have done it, summer sales in Utah is like the thing to do, right? Every one of you knows somebody that went and made their money doing summer sales, which is a great career. To be honest with you, 20 years ago, I thought that would die, but it's done really well. I was that guy. I was about to head out and sell for Apex Alarm at the time. And I was telling him like, hey, I'm gonna go do this. I can make this money. And he sat down with me. I'd worked for him for a year, and he sat down with me, and that's when he kind of said, hey, I like working with you. I want to be a part of this, and just kept teaching me things. And so right off the bat, kind of, I was made a chief operations officer super early, which, when there's only a few of you, like that's what you end up being. And so, but probably after about a year and a half, just again, through the hard work and being willing to do whatever needed to be done. So, and only calling in out that one time, dependability makes a difference. So.
We got time for one more question.
One more? Yes.
So you said that you guys want to go global. Have you already done that? And if that's the case, how do you deal with somebody who's like not of the same culture as you? Like, how have you guys had to deal with that?
Yeah, so that's a challenge. One of the biggest things, if you've ever shipped something internationally, it's the worst. Like, we're still going through that. But one of the cool things about what we're doing with Axomo is it's actually Namify, and I didn't explain this earlier, Namify is actually a vendor on the Axomo platform. And so the way we build Axomo is we're actually partnering. So we have a partner in India, we have a partner in Australia, and we have a partner in the UK that use Axomo as a platform to sell their products through Axomo, and then we just take a % based off of that. And so from a global standpoint, we're actually partnering with other promotional manufacturers around the world to do distribution through our platform. So, and that, because what you just said is a reality. All the countries where different things, different brands, some countries have brands you've never heard of, right? And so it's completely different. But
Thank you, Chris Jensen.
yeah, thank you guys, I appreciate it.